What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host that rocked too hard to Tenacious D, and I'm kind of exhausted and sweaty and gross, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/EntitledPeople. Alright, so last time we read from Entitled People, we started a saga of stories called Meeting the Most Entitled Person I Know. And here we have number 2, called Meeting Number 2 with the Most Entitled Person I Know. Let's just call them the Lilith Chronicles from here on. Okay. After the incident at the hospital, mother-in-law wanted to start fresh. Everyone gets a second chance at meeting Lilith. Mother-in-law plans a family dinner. In attendance is mother-in-law, father-in-law, in quotes, which is mother-in-law's boyfriend of 40 years, her now deceased parents, a couple aunts and uncles, and 2 cousins with their significant others and children. Of course, my husband and I, along with our children. Important to note, there were 8 children, ages newborn, 2 4-year-olds, 2 10-year-olds, 3 14-15-year-olds. Brother-in-law and Lilith showed up an hour late. In her arms is a toddler. Mother-in-law was the first to ask,
"Well, who is this little man?"
Lilith in an icy tone that froze the room.
"This is my son."
Mother-in-law took a second to recover from the surprise and tone of her voice.
"Well, aren't you a little cutie pie? Would you like to go play with the other kids while I finish up supper?" "No, he stays with me. I don't allow him to play with other children until I get to know them."
Okay. Family kind of exchanging glances. Conversation resumes. Lilith does not join in, only sits stony-faced with her son on her lap. She never responded to any questions, left brother-in-law to answer for her. Mother-in-law calls us to eat. Lilith makes no move to join us. When mother-in-law asked her to join us, Lilith replies,
"No, I don't eat other people's cooking, and I don't like fried chicken anyway."
Mother-in-law apologized all over herself, stating she had asked brother-in-law if it was okay. Lilith just looked at her and shrugged. After eating, we all went back to the living room, kids going to the family room to play. Mother-in-law's house is an open floor plan, but kind of L-shaped. Living room, then kitchen dining room in the corner, family room. She has her chair positioned where she can see the whole house. She asked Lilith again if she would like to let her child go play and she could sit here and see everything. It has been a good 90 minutes, maybe even 2 hours, and Lilith nor the child have moved in that time. Again, with the icy tone,
"No, I'm not comfortable with letting him in there with the bigger kids."
I interject that those bigger kids have much younger siblings, and 2 of them aren't much bigger than him. It's a room full of toys. And that earned me the first of many death glares to come. I was the first to earn it, and have been the recipient of it more times than anyone. It is now referred to as Brandy Die Look. Trying to ease the tension, one of the aunts asked about the wedding, when, where, etc.
"Oh, it's all taken care of. We got our license yesterday. Next Saturday, we're going to meet with the Justice of the Peace at
local lake popular for small weddings." Aunt laughs and says,
"Oh, that's where Brandy and Aiden got married."
Lilith turned to brother-in-law and tells him, why didn't he tell her? Brother-in-law just shrugged and said he didn't see the big deal. Mother-in-law says it's a wonderful place, so romantic.
"I'm not getting married where they did. I want my own memories of my wedding, not theirs."
Wow. Silence. Lilith to brother-in-law,
"It's time to go now. We have to find somewhere to get married and see if the JOP is okay with the change." "Well, we need to know soon so we can all be there and help out like we did for Brandy and Aiden." "Oh, no one is invited but you and my parents. We're just saying our vows."
Where are all these crickets coming from?
"Yeah, I don't know any of you well enough to invite to my wedding, but brother-in-law insists that his mom be there." "Really?"
Grandma, first time she has really spoken up.
"I can't be there to see my grandson get married."
"Boy, you'd best be rethinking this."
"There's nothing to rethink. I'm pregnant and he's marrying me. That's it."
They ended up getting married at the library in front of the fountain. Mother-in-law and Lilith's parents were the only ones there. Okay, so Lilith seems to be a person with little regards to anyone's opinions other than her own. Because, oh my god. Alright, here we have episode 3 of the Lilith Saga. Okay, so they call it Lilith Saga. The wedding reception. Let's start with after the wedding. Mother-in-law, being the person she is, took the newly wedded couple and Lilith's parents out to eat. She had already prearranged this with father-in-law, so he was there waiting for them. This did not sit well with Lilith, who demanded to know why he is there. Mother-in-law and father-in-law have been together for around 20 years at this point. I wasn't there, of course, but somehow they soothed her ruffled feathers and were seated. After being seated, appetizers and drinks were ordered. When the server asked Lilith her drink, she beamed and said,
I'm pregnant, so just water for me.
At this point, her father laughed and said,
Yeah, and you ain't old enough for neither.
Excuse me, what?
asked father-in-law. Come to find out, Lilith had just turned 20. Brother-in-law was 35 at the time. Woo! Just have to interject that to this day, I don't understand Lilith refusing to eat someone's homemade cooking, but will eat in restaurants. Shortly after the food arrived, brother-in-law tells mother-in-law that he has something to tell her. He says that his landlord doesn't allow people under 21, so they're gonna have to move in with her until they can find another place. He says he has to be out in 10 days. Mother-in-law isn't happy, but what is she gonna do? Father-in-law was furious that they didn't ask, they're just telling her. Mother-in-law and father-in-law do not actually live together. They both have their own houses, but they kinda rotated certain days at hers and certain days at his, and some days off from even seeing each other. Father-in-law says they won't be staying at his house ever. With those words, father-in-law became enemy number 2. I'm number 1, in case you're wondering. The rest of the meal was a strained disappointment for mother-in-law. The next 10 days, mother-in-law, father-in-law, and Aiden spent moving brother-in-law and Lilith into mother-in-law's house. So many in-laws. I hadn't been cleared by the doctor yet due to complications. Lilith just refused to lift anything or do anything other than sit on mother-in-law's couch holding her son, because she's pregnant. Jumping to them being married, about a month, Lilith was snooping in mother-in-law's room and found mother-in-law's copy of our wedding album. Yes, mother-in-law has her own copy. Yes, it's kind of odd, but it isn't hurting me, so whatever. It's not weird. When mother-in-law got home from work, Lilith slammed it down in front of her.
Did you do this for them?
Mother-in-law says no. They paid for their own wedding and reception. Lilith refused to believe her. She demanded that mother-in-law throw a reception for her. Them. Remember, she said she didn't know any of us well enough to invite us to her wedding. But now she wants a wedding reception and to invite those she has already snubbed? Mother-in-law says she'll think about it. Lilith says no, there's no thinking about it, yes or no, because it has to be done before she starts showing. Mother-in-law tells her she just doesn't have a whole lot of money to waste on a party. Lilith whines.
But no one likes me. I want to try again.
And mother-in-law, being the person she is, agrees to it. As soon as mother-in-law agrees to it, Lilith brought out her list of demands. Holy crap. Yes, I saw the list. She wanted the whole thing. She wanted appetizers, she wanted a catered meal, a dessert bar, a 3-tier wedding cake, an open bar, dance floor with a live DJ or band, real flower decorations, candles on every table, mementos for people to take home. Of course, a photographer. Mother-in-law told me she nearly passed out when reading this list. Mother-in-law tells her this is too much. She can't do this. Cue Lilith whining and crying again about how no one likes her and this would give everyone a chance to get to know her better. Mother-in-law says she will get back to her and that's all she can promise at this time. That's when mother-in-law came to me. I have friends that run a catering company. At the time, it was small, but now it's a big deal to be able to get them. I asked my friends for help. They agreed to meet mother-in-law and Lilith. I was there because they are my friends. It took some doing, but we came up with an affordable meal. They didn't do desserts. They contracted with a lady that did dessert for them. They got in touch with her, and given the limited amount of time, she could not do a full-sized wedding cake. But she could make a smaller version, and she had the capability to make her heart-shaped and bell-shaped cupcakes. At first, Lilith was not sold on the idea, but when I said I wish she had done that for mine, she did my cake too, but didn't have the cupcakes at the time. It sold Lilith because I was jealous of her. Wink wink from me to mother-in-law. Open bar DJ bands were off the table. Not affordable, but we did have some burned CDs of music of Lilith's choosing. I helped mother-in-law handwrite and address all invitations. Lilith gave up after 5 because she had to rock her son to sleep and it was making her hand hurt anyway. Day of the reception. Even though Lilith had approved everything, nothing was to her liking. She decided it was all tacky as hell and looked like a hillbilly barn dance. The food was disgusting. No, it wasn't. And the cake was not a wedding cake at all, but just a big birthday cake with some cupcakes. She screamed all of this at mother-in-law before leaving the room in tears. She ended up locking herself in the bathroom and crying for an hour. Okay, yeah, I know she was pregnant and hormonal, but this was just ridiculous. Come to find out, it had nothing to do with any of the food, the decorations, the cake. It was the gifts. She had expected to be showered with gifts. Gifts for her, not household items or cards with money, but things for her. And how did she know what was in those gifts? She took them into a side room without brother-in-law and opened them. We had all noticed she kept disappearing, but again, pregnant, so we all thought bathroom breaks. Nope, she was opening the gifts in secret and getting more angry with each one that wasn't about her. After she finally came out of the bathroom, she looked at mother-in-law and said,
You will be throwing me a baby shower to make up for this crap show.
And turned to me,
And you will be lucky to even be invited. You ruined this for me on purpose because you're just jealous she has another daughter-in-law and more grandkids on the way.
Lilith snapped her fingers at brother-in-law and said they were leaving. I stayed with mother-in-law to help clean up and load all the gifts into father-in-law's truck. I should have said screw it and went home, but I can't do that to my mother-in-law. Stay tuned for the next episode, the baby shower. Edited to add, I forgot all about the pictures. Aiden brother-in-law have a half-sister on their dad's side that is an amazing artist. She is a professional photographer, but her passion lies with her paintings. When sister found out that her baby brother was getting married, she immediately offered to do the pictures. Lilith said no. Aiden reached out to their sister and asked her to do it for him and brother-in-law after she told mother-in-law no because of how Lilith acted towards her previous offer. Sister was unable to get any shots of Lilith and brother-in-law together where she wasn't crying or screaming. Not even one shot alone where she wasn't pouting or scowling. Lilith also threw a fit, saying sister deliberately made her family look bad in the pictures. Honey, they showed up in cutoffs, tank tops, hair not brushed in a week, or a half-assed ponytail with flip-flops on their dirty feet, if even wearing shoes. Sister had nothing to do with how they looked. Okay, so yeah, she's definitely entitled. That is just ridiculous. How does that happen? I mean, I figure like her dad was probably, her parents, I guess, didn't really discipline her much, but geez, man. Alright, this story's called Two Entitled Women Stare and Watch Me Eat for an Hour Because They Feel They Are Entitled to My Leftover Food in a Cafe. Twice. I have a slight eating disorder. Some days I'm not able to eat much, but I still go out to cafes to try to eat. Sometimes I am able to finish the small dishes that I order, and sometimes I can't even get halfway through. I also eat quite slowly. For this reason, I often like to eat alone. A couple of weeks ago, I was in a cafe and spent an hour eating but couldn't finish half of my food. There were two older ladies, grandma's age, sitting at a table near to me, and they asked me if they could take the rest of my food for the street cats to eat. I was in Istanbul, and in Istanbul, there are a lot of street cats and a culture of people feeding the street cats, which is a very nice thing. I said to the woman, yes, of course, and I gave them my leftover food. Fast forward to a few days later, and I go to the same cafe again. The same two grandmas are sitting at the same table next to where I sat down, and I said hello, but only one of them bothered to reply. I ordered my food and started to eat. Today was a slow eating day for me, and I wasn't sure if I would be able to finish. I spent about an hour trying to eat again. While I was eating, I noticed that the only thing the grandmas had on their table was a glass of water with only a few sips left in it. I also noticed that they kept watching me and eyeing up my food. After over half half an hour, I noticed that they had reoriented their chairs so that they were now looking directly at me. It started to make me feel uncomfortable, and being watched made it even harder for me to eat. The two grandmas still only had an almost empty glass of water on their table. At this point, I really felt like I was being watched. After about an hour, I decided that I couldn't eat anymore and I was going directly home after. So I asked the waiter to put the rest of my food in a takeaway box. The moment the two grandmas saw that I was finished, one of them asked me if they could have my leftover food for the street cats, and the other woman asked the waiter to give them my leftover food. This confirmed what I had thought. The women had stayed at their table for an extra hour while ordering nothing from the cafe, feeling entitled enough to watch me eat for an hour and then take the rest of my food. If this wasn't entitlement, then I don't know what is. And as soon as the waiter told the two ladies that I had asked for a doggy bag, a leftover food bag, and that I was taking the rest of my food home, the two ladies immediately stood up and left the cafe. Not only did they make me feel very uncomfortable, but they took up a valuable table which the cafe could have had other customers at for a whole hour, while the ladies ordered nothing and consumed nothing for an hour. During Modelo, where cafes have to social distance their tables and cannot take in the regular amount of customers, they lost business for a whole hour because two ladies wanted to sit there and watch me eat for an hour and then entitled themselves to my food. I was thinking about telling the cafe what had happened, but in the end, I didn't bother. Instead, I am writing on Reddit to share my story of two entitled women. If I go to the same cafe and the same two women are there, I'll have to go and sit in another cafe. Okay, first off, I'm sorry. I'm just tired, man. Second, that's really creepy, really awkward, and that's just not okay. Let people eat in peace.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.